the Upshot, Ultimate Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, as always, is Josh Mansfield. And on Sunday, we had an enormous sporting event. People watching from around the world. And it was the conclusion of the Disc Golf Pro Tour All-Star Weekend, Josh. A thrilling finish, particularly in MPO. We're going to break down everything that has to do with this event. But before we get to that, really quickly, how about that halftime show at the Super Bowl?
It was excellent. I will say the one funny thing, though, I saw a meme where someone said, so what, we getting the hologram Tupac next? And then there was the Pawn Stars guy who says, best I could do is an upside down 50 Cent.
Yeah, that was
For the most part, though, I thought the show was excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. One of the best halftime shows I remember.
So the upside down 50 Cent thing, like, they had the cool, like, camera, like, rotate and pan down. And so then it's like, oh, it's 50, because you knew they were going to have a cameo of some kind.
Right.
And they played, like, one of the iconic Dr. Dre beats ever. And, you know, I thought 50 did a great job with the performance, but it was weird to have him just, like, hanging from the ceiling. But, you know, Super Bowl overall, interesting game. Bengals covered the spread. I was happy about that. But man, it felt like they let one slip away, Josh.
You know, I think that if Joe Burrow doesn't get a full new offensive line this next season, he should find a different team.
Yeah, they got to like draft for left tackle like straight away.
Yeah. I mean, being completely honest, it was 7 sacks. Joe Burrow, by flipping that pass out on the final play of the game, avoided the 8th, which would have been a Super Bowl record for most sacks in the Super Bowl. So Joe Burrow got just pummeled again. And I said from the beginning, that's what's going to be his problem. It was an excellent game. That's all I was hoping for. I think there are amazing storylines on both sides, and I'm happy Matthew Stafford got a ring.
I had a lot of money riding on Cooper Kupp scoring a touchdown. He scored 2. It would have been even better if he scored the first one, but Odell pulling down the first touchdown of the game.
Yeah.
But shout out to Cooper Kupp. That guy is a real problem. Let's get into this All-Star Weekend. So we're going to break this thing down from basically every angle. And hopefully, if you're a subscriber, you got to catch our post-draft analysis that we did live in the Discord on Thursday night, which was a lot of fun. As I mentioned on Thursday's show, we're going to be doing a lot more live to tape airings of our subscriber bonus segments, particularly after Elite Series events. So after LVC on Sunday night, we're going to sit down and we're going to do a rapid react show where we just break down what we just saw. And that's just, you know, we're less than 2 weeks away now. I mean, it's February 15th. And this tournament starts on February 24th, which is 9 days from today. So we are almost ready for official disc golf. We got things kicked off, though, this weekend with some unofficial disc golf at the All-Star Weekend. We're going to talk big picture recap, biggest surprises. We're going to review the format and the course and the live coverage on DGN. We're also going to talk about our takeaways as we head into the rest of the season. And I'm surprised, Josh, at how many takeaways I feel that there are. I feel like because of particularly this sort of head-to-head singles format where we had kind of standard round being played, stroke play, the opportunity to like see how players look was actually really present, and players were playing hard and wanted to win and, you know, didn't want to lose to their fellow competitor. I mean, it was pretty, like, players are pretty serious out there, all things considered, which, you know, I think is always interesting, you know, see how players take an all-star event. I mean, people were getting mad when they went out of bounds, and like, it didn't feel substantially different than watching players play at a regular tournament.
I completely agree. And I think the other thing that adds to the ability to do takeaways is oftentimes players, when they go into a weekend, have kind of where we expect them to finish, right? And then where they finish relative to that spot, as long as they're within, you know, so many standard deviations, and this isn't exact science, this is just based on feeling and observation, then you kind of think, oh yeah, okay, that's expected, right? So-and-so, we expect Kevin Jones to finish top 5. He finished 10th. Okay, that's fine. But when it's head to head and a player underperforms or gets beat by several strokes, it's pretty notable. And so I think it was really easy to go down each of those matchups and create takeaways from them, because they weren't just lost in the overall rankings and then we're us being focused on the top, because the top was worth just as much as the bottom. And so it kept us interested and engaged with every point. And I mean, the players knew that too. So it was an interesting format, and I think a really nice season preview.
So let's just break down the basics. Team Calvin getting the win over Team Eagle, 7-6, the final score, after Team Calvin pulled out 4 of the 7 wins in singles play. They came into the final day tied at 3-3 after the doubles and the skills competition portions of the event. And it was a very exciting back and forth round. I mean, the scores were kind of going back and forth, 7-6, 6-7, the whole time. And Eagle McMahon, well outside of circle 2 on the 18th hole, basically has to make it from, I don't know, it's hard to estimate from the video, but it's probably like 100 feet. And he is obstructed behind a tree, kind of a low ceiling, and he throws it in. I mean, the guy throws it in. It's unbelievable. One of the best shots of the weekend, just cans this putt to flip the pressure to Calvin Heimberg, because they're the final card coming in. And if Calvin, who's at the edge of the circle with a difficult uphill putt, if he misses, it's going to a playoff. And Calvin, ice in his veins, just buries it. Just cashes it in and shoots the best round of the day in singles, beats Eagle by a stroke, and claims the victory for Team Calvin. Over in FPO, Team Katrina pulls off the enormous upset over Team Paige. Paige Pierce, widely considered to have the best team after the draft. We put a poll up on Twitter. More than 90% of people picked Team Paige to win before the start of the event. And not so. Team Katrina, despite trailing by a point heading into the singles on Sunday, comes away with 4 wins to Team Paige's 2 and gets the win. A big upset, to be sure, but some really impressive performances from the team up and down the weekend. And we'll talk a little bit about why I think the format played into that a little bit later in the show. But what a finish for, the final hole, basically. I love this trend, by the way, in disc golf right now. Just like epic drama on the 18th hole of the final round, quote unquote, in this case. But Eagle with the crazy shot, Calvin with the answer, and a really fun finish to a fun weekend.
It definitely delivered. And at the beginning, I was a little bit critical of just kind of the structure. I thought it would, but it really did deliver the entertainment that I think it was hyped up to do. And I think it's a good signal for the All-Star event moving forward, and for the season, right? It was close. It was exciting. There was good golf. It may not have been a Pro Tour event, but I think it was still what people were hoping for at the start of the season. It gave us the disc golf fix we needed going in for the next 2 weeks and to hold us over to Las Vegas. It
was a nice appetizer for sure.
Yeah.
For the season. I mean, the highlight, if you don't, I think you could pick Eagle shot and call it the number one highlight from the weekend. I would not begrudge you if you made that choice. But the shot that's really been reverberating, made it all the way to the SportsCenter top 10, Nico Locastro hitting an ace on a 536-foot shot. I mean, he throws a massive hyzer way out around the trees. You can't even see the disc. And then, you're looking way, way down to the green. Disc hits, skips up and in. I mean, that's going to be in the shot of the year contest. And we've just getting started. It's the very first event of 2022, and we have a shot of the year candidate. Just an incredible shot from Nicolo Castro, who just goes berserk on the tee pad, is like sprinting all around, gets knocked down, does a barrel roll, gets back up, runs all the way down to the green. And like even the Nico haters were like, all right, respect. That was a pretty sweet shot.
I will say the one thing I did see on Facebook, someone said, I mean, that was an amazing shot and all, but does somebody have a timer on that celebration? But no, shout out to Nico. It was an amazing shot. And Nico repping his new sponsor at that time as well.
New sponsor for Nicolo Castro. Everybody was wondering, what's the deal? And in the press conference before the event, he announced that he's going to a mixed bag. He has 2 sponsorships, one with Gateway. Of course, he's been with Gateway off and on for many years. His uncle runs Gateway. And Clash Discs out of Finland, who's been getting a bunch of press from the fact that they have this big name player sponsorship now, a smaller company in Finland. So, Nico didn't look like he missed a beat. I mean, he was throwing great this weekend.
He really was. I think Nico was one of the players who I think overperformed where people were expecting. And not to say, I mean, I think he played relatively close to his rating, but I think the expectation was that there was going to be a little bit more rust or just not as clean because of the off-season drama with not having a sponsor, the weird cut from West Side. And so Nico did not seem bothered by that at all going into this weekend.
One of the storylines, of course, heading into this weekend was how would players look who have new bags, throwing new plastic. I would say it was a pretty mixed bag. We saw some players look really sharp. Katrina Allen, probably most notably, and, throwing DGA and just looking totally comfortable out there. Shot the best round in singles and just overall looked, almost eclipsed Paige in the distance competition. And we'll talk a little bit more about the distance competition in a bit. But then, on the other side, you've got Chris Dickerson moving from Prodigy to Discraft. He did not look sharp. He was one of the lowest finishers in the singles competition and just, didn't look Chris Dickerson-esque. So, and then, with lots of other stuff kind of mixed in and around. And we'll talk about a bunch of the players as we go through this episode today. But, I don't think there's any obvious single trend line about how players react to new bags, which is not surprising because that's pretty much the trend we've seen, the lack of trend that we've seen over the last few years when players make the switch.
Yeah, it depends all on that amount of time they've been able to work with it. And I agree that I don't think there's a huge storyline to take away for any overall trend, but definitely some individual players that I know we're about to get into.
So let's talk about the biggest surprises from the weekend. There's plenty of stuff that I think, made a lot of sense, kind of what we expected to see. But let's talk about the biggest surprises. Josh, I think we have to start with Team Katrina getting the win over Team Paige. Did you see this coming? We scored this in our preview show or in our draft reaction show that we did for subscribers. We scored it just going through the matchups, each individual event, kind of mapping out what we thought the doubles teams would be, looking through the singles matchups. We scored it 11-2 for Paige Pierce. Paige came out and said they on Instagram and said they're going to sweep Team Katrina. Instead, they lose 7-6 to Team Cat. How did this happen?
Team Katrina has a couple of players that are veterans in the sport, that have long experience, and that I think aren't making as many headlines, but we easily forget that they still are excellent players. The combination of two things. This is the first thing, right? Jessica Weiss, Lisa Fakis, they looked excellent. Katrina, and we said Katrina could come back and upset Paige. That was a very real possibility. But with the new bag, we weren't thinking it was going to happen. And so for Katrina to come out and do it was impressive. So just demonstrating, and then of course, Sarah Hokum, just lots of veterans who played really, really well. And then on the other hand, you also have Deanne Carey, who looked amazing. So you got players who are playing above their typical rating, I guess, and where you would expect them. So I think it was kind of those combo of two things that Team Katrina was able to take down the win. But I definitely voted on Team Paige in the Twitter, and when we broke down the show, we definitely thought it was going to go the other way, and by a substantial margin.
And I think a lot of people did.
Yeah.
So, Team Katrina picks up a point in the Friday skills competition when Sarah Hokum and Rebecca Cox beat out Haley King and Madison Walker in the accuracy competition. That actually doesn't surprise me. I didn't really think that. I thought this was going to be the weakest spot for Team Paige, and it was. Otherwise, they won distance. Team Paige won distance in putting. And in doubles, they end up splitting because each team wins one matchup, and there's a tie. And so then we get to singles. Team Paige has a lead, and look, just straight up, Katrina beat Paige by 3 strokes. Sarah Hokum beat Missy Gannon by 2 strokes. Lisa Fakis beat Kona Panis. And then Deanne Carey gets the win over Heather Young by a stroke. Now, that certainly was the biggest surprise. And really, you could argue that was the linchpin matchup. Now, obviously, any of them could have flipped and gone the other way, but the other ones all make a lot of sense. I think you're like, okay, I see that. Let me tell you this, Josh. Before today, or before Sunday, I should say, Deanne Carey was 1-21 all time against Heather Young at tournaments where they both competed.
We looked at that stat.
That's right, in our sub bonus segment. Only once had she topped Heather Young at a tournament. I looked it up. That tournament was the most recent tournament played. The Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championships.
Wow.
And Carey finished 10th to Young 17th.
Well, and that's a course that's pretty lefty favorable too.
That's true.
That's a big win. That's a really good win. And now she's got the All-Star event.
And so I just think people need to maybe adjust their mental models a little bit. Deanne Carey, Diesel, as we were reminded many times throughout the broadcast, her nickname, she's on the move. This is a player who could be, scratching on that 940, 950 door this year. And, I don't know if you're going to line her up to win an Elite Series event yet, but certainly has a ton of potential and really looked confident out there this weekend.
She did. She really did. And I think when you look at just overall surprises, I think that one was, and I understand, this course probably doesn't play to Heather Young's skill suit much, but this is still, in my opinion, one of the biggest surprises inside of the Katrina upset.
Oh, for sure. So, we'll talk a little bit more about Deanne Carey later on when we talk about some takeaways. So, another surprise for me, Josh. How about Calvin Heimberg and Ezra Aderhold beating Drew Gibson and Double G in the distance contest? Did anybody pick this?
I don't think so. Nobody picked it. I also had a different image of what this distance contest was going to look like going in. That fairway was way more narrow than I thought it was. That was not a true distance competition.
They called it an accurate distance competition, and that is certainly true because
yes,
it was like drives on a regular fairway. It was not a just, grip it and rip it and it goes where it goes. When Jeff Spring talked about how it was going to be OB on both sides, I was like, okay, that's fair. You got like a 200-foot wide thing or something, but no, this was just straight up golf fairway with pretty tight OB. I actually think it was a little too tight personally. There were a lot of drives that were going out of bounds that were not terrible shots. And I think that hurt both Drew and Double G because it's just not necessarily their skill set, especially when you're coming in with a mindset of this is a distance competition. I'm trying to just max out the shot here. Neither of them even had the best Sorry. Girthy did end up having the best drive, but not by much. 661 feet, which, I mean, imagine that, like on a tight fairway, 661. But what I think the big surprise was Calvin Heimberg shooting 654 feet on a golf line, like a straight up classic Calvin, pretty straight golf line. I did not know that he could throw it that far. I just did not know that. I don't even think he knew that.
It was really, really impressive to see how far. And Ezra threw, I think Ezra threw about kind of what I was expecting. I think Drew was the big disappointment.
Sure. 601. I mean, still.
Yeah.
If only I could be disappointed by a 601-foot drive. But yeah, given his reputation, for sure.
Yeah. I think even if you just make it so that where the disc hits, for example, counts as the distance, because so many of them just like would skip OB too. It's in that short golf fairway grass. So you had shots that looked amazing and they just skip out of bounds. And I don't know. It's fine.
Calvin's drive got a big skip.
Yeah. It was fine. It wasn't what I was expecting it to be, but I think that had I known the style and the format, Ezra, I think, does have a lot of control relative to other far throwers when it comes to that distance. I'm not surprised that Calvin and Ezra set up well for this style of distance. I am also shocked that Calvin can throw that far on a golf line. And it was such a good shot.
So sick.
Like, because Garrett, you could definitely tell. I mean, he's doing his big run up, throw it up over everything, let it flex, flippy disc, right? And Calvin looked like he was just playing the hole. It was wild. That was an upset that I did not expect out of this weekend.
What else surprised you?
This one also kind of relates to Double G and Drew, because Double G and Drew and Double G Ezra both shoot 9 under rounds, which relative after the lead card. So Calvin and Eagle, they shoot 13 and 12. Those are the hot rounds by a mile. You then go to 9, and it's people who you'd expect: Garrett Gerthy, Ezra Aderhold, on a course that was very Arizona-esque. And then you have James Conrad. That surprised me a lot, because we saw both on FPO as well as MPO. I mean, this course was favoring distance for being able to get inside, get good looks, and for James to come out and be able to play, not only beat Drew, but to play that well relative to the rest of the field. I think it bodes really well for James to be able to be that successful on a part of the tour that we don't typically say, oh yeah, this is James's section of the tour. That's kind of, we reserve that till later in the season usually.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign. This is Conrad's second year now with MVP discs in his bag. So remember, it took him a while last year to really find the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically hit the stride at Worlds. Obviously, it worked out amazing. And then, it was just a little up and down the whole year. I would not be surprised if we saw James Conrad have a really good season. This seems like it could be a spark plug kind of event for him as he gets started in his year. By the way,
yeah.
I hadn't seen this number out there, so I checked in with Jeff Spring in the Pro Tour. All of the players got $1,000 for showing up to the event. The winning team, all the members of the winning team got an additional $500. And then players who finished the top of various skills competitions got $250 bonuses. So,
okay,
not a monstrous kind of payout weekend, but of course you also get an all expenses paid vacation to a resort in Tucson. Not bad. I would take it.
Not the worst way you could spend your weekend.
The only other thing that I think that stood out to me as a kind of a surprise was Adam Hammes not looking as sharp as I expected. On what it feels like home turf for him. Not necessarily this specific course, because this is a temp course, but we've seen him play so well in Arizona and in the preseason the last couple of years. He's coming off his best season as a pro, no question about it. Pretty clearly a top 10 player in the world at this point. And it just wasn't really sharp this weekend. And not everybody's going to have their best day. I mean, but he shot a 998 rated round in singles. it's kind of surprising for him playing in Arizona.
Yeah, well, and especially for a guy who's 1040. I mean, I don't care who you are. If you're a 1040 rated player and you shoot a sub-1,000 round, that's going to make the surprise list for sure.
Yeah. I mean, especially when like clearly double digits was available, and you didn't end up coming close, shooting just 3 under. So those are some of the things that surprised us. When we come back, we're going to talk about the format and the course and the coverage on DGN. We're also going to talk about some of our biggest takeaways from the weekend as we look ahead to the start of the season. Stick around. It's the Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Well, the Pound 2022 ambassadors have been announced, and you've got to hear these names. Nate Sexton, Jeremy Koling, Lisa Fakis, Dustin Keegan, Zoe Andyke, Cole Radalin, Maria Oliva, Vanessa Van Dyken, and Christian Dietrich are all going to be repping Pound. They'll be wearing Pound bags out on the course, and of course they are, because these are the best bags in the game. Go to PoundDiscGolf.com to check out your options and get ready for their next custom drop coming at the beginning of February. Welcome back to the Upshot. Well, before we talk about the format of the course and the coverage and our takeaways from the All-Star Weekend, I have some breaking news, Josh.
Okay.
Literally happening as we are recording. I just got this on the wire. Disc Golf Pro Tour is excited to announce its live media plan for the 2022 season. So we are going to see DGN broadcasting all the Elite Series events and the PDGA majors, including both USDGC and the European Open.
Oh, okay.
And final day live coverage of Elite Series events will still be available for free on YouTube. Silver Series events will be on DGN only, along with DGPT Match Play Championship. And so, we were wondering, Josh, whether or not DGN was going to get the European Open, given that there's this new European disc golf stream or organization. So ultimately, it will be on DGN. And DGN is also going to make individual tournaments and rounds available to purchase for those who do not have a subscription, starting at $4.99 a round, tournaments starting at $9.99. DGN subscription is going up to $11.99 a month, or $99.99 annually. Okay? So last thing here, and this was announced as a part of the PDGA Disc Golf Pro Tour sort of merger. The PDGA members will have complimentary access to Las Vegas Challenge, the Champions Cup, U.S. Women's, the final 2 rounds of Pro Worlds, and the MVP Open. So you just get those for free if you're a PDGA member. And PDGA members will continue to receive a discount on subscriptions. So there you go. Your thoughts on the DGN live plan this year?
I think the biggest news, getting the European Open, is a big deal. I mean, we talked about the European stream and how they were able to get significantly more viewers than we expected on their first run through, and so we wondered, as you mentioned, whether or not they were going to be able to lock down the European Open. Looks like that still is going to be Disc Golf Network for now, and I think that it's interesting because that's a commitment. It's one thing for a player to go over there and take their bag with them. It's a whole nother thing to get all the equipment that is going to be necessary to broadcast that event over in Europe. That is going to be quite the ordeal. And I am not envious of the person in charge of logistics of that. But it shows they're committed. And I think that they're trying to continue to remain the streaming network for the top level events. I mean,
the Disc Golf Pro Tour is a live OTT platform that does other things as well. I mean, this further confirms for me that this is their primary revenue stream. this is the thing that is bringing in the most money. And like maybe sponsorships will get there someday. They've obviously had a lot of success getting some bigger name sponsors in the door. But, you know, we're seeing what happens when you have all of this consolidation. They get all the Elite Series events. They get all the majors under their tent. And they also raise prices. So we're going from, you know, they raised prices last year. And now they're raising prices again from $9.99 to $11.99 a month. Not that I think that's unreasonable. I mean, you look at the inflation we're seeing, look at the prices of like Netflix and stuff. But, you know, I think some people are probably going to be a little irked by that. Still under $100 for the whole year. I think it's a good deal personally. But interesting to see this all playing out the way that it is. And no notes here on whether USDGC will be pay-per-view again. I bet that it will. But we'll see.
I assume that it will as well, but to be determined.
Let me see it. Let me just double check this and make sure that it doesn't say anything about that.
Did they announce Jomez as being lead card coverage for post produced again?
They have not announced that yet. Okay. We're actually waiting on a lot of information from the Pro Tour. They have not announced their their YouTube post production partners. They have not announced the points, how the points are going to work this year. We don't know how much majors are worth. There's no announcement on that yet. We were supposed to get that. I think we were supposed to get that in December. And then we were supposed to get it in January. And then we were supposed to get it February 1st. And now it's February 15th as we're recording this today. And we still haven't seen it. So things are a little behind schedule right now. But, you know, I assume that information will be coming out sometime this week. All right. Let's turn our attention now back to the All-Star Weekend and talk about, let's just talk about the format first. Overall, what did you think of the format with skills competition Friday, doubles on Saturday, and singles on Sunday?
I liked it a lot, actually. And I thought it was good going into it, but I liked it even more than I think I expected to, which is very complimentary. Really, really good format, I think, for an All-Stars weekend. The skills competition they were interesting. I love doubles. I think I'll come back to it, but doubles is good. I want doubles again. I think it's interesting to see the doubles pairings. And then the singles matchup ended up, like you said, it felt like a real tournament in terms of the intensity the players were taking it. And I think the other thing that we had talked a lot about and kind of gone back and forth on was the scoring and the relative value of different events, because, you know, at the end of the day, the singles event was worth more than the other two combined. So you could lose all 6 points from skills and doubles, and if you won singles and swept singles, you could still win. I wasn't quite sure how I felt about that, but looking back, I really enjoy that, because it was enough to kind of set an edge one way or the other, you know, for Paige and Katrina, for example, that it felt like Katrina was playing from behind going into the singles event, and kind of already sets that storyline, or it just makes for a, you know, clean slate. Let's see the tiebreaker here in the singles event for Calvin and Eagle, which delivered the drama on the final hole. I may have felt different if there had been a significant blowout, but I think that it did a good job playing to strengths of different players in a way that was able to balance out competition and ensure that there was good entertainment. And I cared about the results all the way up until the very end. And that, in my opinion, is a successful event.
One thing that I think was a little overlooked by us, and really I feel like by everybody, the ranked matchups all the way down through singles and really for doubles too, where they like power matched based on seed, that naturally creates balance between the teams and created the opportunity for both matches to end 7-6.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had players who were of a very, you know, close level of, you know, rating and skill to one another being matched up. And I think we overlooked that a little bit. It was easy to look at Team Paige and be like, wow, look at all this great firepower. But, you know, it turns out like when Sarah Hokum and Missy Gannon go head to head, I mean, you know, Missy Gannon may have had the slightly better season in 2021, but it's not like that's some kind of total mismatch. And Sarah Hokum won the matchup. Katrina and Paige. Paige probably the slightly better player. Katrina won the matchup. And so that balanced out any perceived like overall total skill differential, because at the end of the day, you're going head to head with one other person. You're not going against the entire team in aggregate. So I think, when we went through and we looked at the singles matchups, like we did end up picking a lot of them for Team Page, but it was, even when we did that in our sub bonus segment, it was like, well, this could be a close match, but I think I give it to Team Page. And a lot of those broke the other way. And so I thought that created like a really nice structure for good, exciting competition. And, I don't know that I would expect it to go down to 7-6 every year if you like reran this a bunch of times, but it's certainly going to be close enough to be interesting every time on Sunday by the nature of the fact that singles is worth more than half the points and that you have these head-to-head matchups that are always going to be at least decently well matched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I give the format very high marks. I like it a lot, and I hope that it's back next year.
We already talked about the distance competition feeling a little too narrow. I get the concept there. They didn't just want it to be a like straight up like wide open salt flats bomb fest. But I also think that they probably went a little too far in the other direction. And like in a distance competition, I don't want it to feel like I'm on an actual fairway. Like,
right.
Let them open up a little bit. I loved the putting. I thought it was the best of the three. It felt like an NBA 3-point shooting contest.
Yeah.
And in fact, I would like them to lean into that more, put a shot clock up. Like you got to get through the whole thing in a certain amount of time with a timer up on the stream. And, don't let players just like sit and wait 10 seconds for the wind to die down. Like, no, shoot your putts. Like, but different stations and the various things. I think there's a couple tweaks they could make. Felt like some of the obstructions only obstructed right-handed players, not left-handed players. But it was a lot of fun. And how about watching Owen Scoggins and Heather Young just bury putts? I mean, they are elite putters, period. MPO, FPO, it does not matter. Like, I would draft them to my all-putting team.
Yes, it was really, really fun to watch. The one thing I almost want to see that I think would be kind of fun would be to put them next to each other. Set up 2 baskets and have them putt again, like head to head, same time. You're watching out of your periphery your opponent. You're watching Owen Scoggins just dropping putts into the basket. Like I think that could even hype it up. But I was very impressed with it. I thought it was entertaining. I'm with you. I would love a shot clock. I think the other thing, kind of, there was a general theme. I wish there had been more, I guess, like pomp and circumstance to it all. Like I wanted it to be built up more. I want to see the excitement. I want a putting range that doesn't just look like a dry, like dirt field with a tree. I feel like you could have done something with it.
Slap a basket down in the middle of the...
Like that looks like what I do for putting practice, right? I go find a tree somewhere on my course and I set up a practice basket and I work on putting. Like, come on, like let's put it somewhere nice in the resort, right? Like put it somewhere where it looks cool and really aesthetically pleasing to have a putting contest there. That's my one. But I felt that way a little bit about the entire weekend. I wish there had been a little bit more into that to make it feel built up like that kind of All-Stars event that it was.
Accuracy contest. For me, easily the weakest of the 3 skills competitions. I didn't know what they were doing. Like the I guess it was like slack lines almost that they had up between the tree. Like there just wasn't a lot of clarity. Like we need some signs with arrows and stuff. And we need to have more graphics integration with the broadcast to get more of a feel for it. It was just a little weak. I felt like some of it was too difficult. Like going underneath the Mando, like that didn't really play very well. They missed it a lot. I don't know. It just was a little lackluster. I mean, I like the concept of an accuracy competition, but it needs to be designed a little bit better than that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Fine.
What'd you think of the course?
It felt like we picked up the memorial and moved it to a resort. Like, I don't know. It was okay. I think that our predictions, kind of the way it was, from what we looked at on the caddy book, it was almost exactly what we expected. It was a lot of open shots with maybe one or two near the green things to make it a little interesting. I don't know. I was not overwhelmingly surprised or like pleased with it. I thought it worked fine for the formats overall, and for the singles, I mean, it's set up well enough for the event. Except I will say with the doubles, there weren't a lot of separator holes for a doubles tournament. I mean, that's why you saw so many ties. It wasn't
just great players too,
Yeah.
With the opportunity to get second bites at the apple a lot of the time means that you're going to have kind of that flattening effect, period.
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't blown away, but
yeah, I thought it was. I think I have a little bit of a higher opinion than you. I think that there were some holes that were really quite interesting and good. There was plenty of challenge out there, like players were challenged, and there was lots of OB, and they got punished by it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely more varied than Memorial in terms of kind of shot shaping and decision making, but at the end of the day, you're in the desert. There's not that many trees. There's only so much you can do. I think you kind of just have to expect that coming in, and so it was fine. I thought it ended up playing a little harder than I expected, which I thought was good because it made it more interesting. It wasn't just like, everybody's getting birdie every hole. It wasn't just a pure putting competition, I guess.
Right.
Is the thing that sometimes feels like the Memorial can end up like that. The only other thing I'll say about, sort of the format, the addition of the wild cards was just total. It was very sloppy at the outset, and I just didn't think it worked at all in the competition. I mean, I guess it was nice to have double G in the distance contest. That's fun. But otherwise, I mean, we didn't even see the wild cards in the doubles competition because, of course, how are you going to you're adding a seventh person, can't do doubles. And then they were basically non-existent in the broadcast coverage during singles. So then what was the point? What was the point? Don't do this again, DGPT, okay? Do not get bullied into adding people at the last minute. Set the criteria, make the rules, X number of people get in, and that's what we do. If you want to open it up and make it 8 and 8, have 16 players instead of 12, fine by me, but let's have criteria and stick to them and don't do last minute stuff like this. It felt like it devalued it. It was weird. The players were like, Holly Finley's like, I got 2 hours of sleep because I just flew in because I found out at the last possible minute that I was going to be involved in this thing. I don't know. It's just, come on, man.
And maybe this is a little harsh for me to say, but you said that they're not even on the singles coverage. Can't say I'm disappointed. Those wildcard matchups were 8 stroke differences. By far the most uneven matchups of the entire tournament. Holly Finley loses to Madison Walker 9 over to 1 over, and Yuli loses to Garrett Gerthy 1 under to 9 under. It was weird.
Well, you add people at the last minute, and they're the bottom finishers in singles. What a shock!
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's talk about the coverage real quick. DGN had coverage. The final day was free on YouTube. Maybe you saw some of it. If you're a subscriber, maybe you watched some more of it. Overall thoughts, Josh, on the live coverage. First show of the year.
The Disc Golf Network was very hyped over the off season because of the announcement of the combination of the National Tour and the Pro Tour, and this was not a great first start. I was very disappointed in the coverage in a lot of ways.
Wow.
I thought the audio was pretty poor. The camera, there weren't catch cams on some of the shots. I think Paige threw like an upshot, kind of ran a putt that was on a mound with a green behind it, and then they didn't cut to where the disc went in a close matchup on the leader. I was shocked. I was like, what just happened? Where's the disc? It wasn't there, but I didn't know. I was disappointed in that. There was one part on the MPO side. I don't remember who was putting, but they cut over and they show Heather Young holding a camera while the camera operator was like messing with the audio or his hydro pack or whatever. And then it cuts back to the coverage of the putter and you can see the camera visibly shaking, which no knock to Heather Young. I mean, I'm sure it's a hard job and I couldn't do it, but what? Like what's going on? I wasn't, and oh geez, why no UDisc? Please, wow. I had no idea what the scores were. It was so hard to follow. I was playing in a tournament this weekend and I had the coverage up on my phone and I was kind of checking it between shots. But like I went over to UDisc. I was like, oh, this will be a perfect way for me to track what's going on. And then there was no UDisc. It had PDGA Live, but they didn't sort it by matchup. So you just had like aggregate scores all the way down.
Standard scoreboard.
I'm like, this is useless to me right now. I don't have a pen and paper to keep track of this. Yeah. I was not impressed. I'm sorry. Maybe that's a little overcritical, but lot of
on
fixes
the plus,
that I feel. Yeah.
On the plus column,
okay,
they showed the shots. Okay, this is one of the things that I always talk about. Like, we want to see the shots. We got to see the shots.
Yeah.
Right. They did a good job showing the shots. They've gotten very good at using stuff out of replay to keep us abreast of what's happening. When somebody else is shooting a key drive, they show us the putts later. That was good.
That was good.
The fundamental problem here is that the format of this event was difficult to stay on top of because of the way that the scoring worked, right? It's not just a standard leaderboard. You have these head-to-head matchups, and the graphics did not meet the needs of the viewing audience. It's just that simple. It was very difficult to know what the hell was going on. They would show scoreboards sometimes, but not enough to know what was going on. There were not whole previews, which I get it, that they probably didn't get out there and film the whole previews, but it meant that we didn't know what the holes shapes were. We had people just shooting shots like kind of randomly a little bit. It just felt like, oh, we're popping over here and we're seeing this person throw a shot, but we don't know what the hole is. A lot of times the commentators weren't even totally sure what was happening. And that is in part because there was no UDisc. It shows you how important it is to have that live scoring with the key fundamentals of like, what are the matchups and who's ahead and, where are we in the course. Now, I think they did the best that they could with the score tools that they had. The DGN folks, I know, like built spreadsheets that were populating graphics, but ultimately, it just has to be better next time because it was impossible to keep track of what was going on, even if you knew what was going on. Like, if you were just a random person who's kind of a casual fan who's just popping in and being like, oh, what's going on with this All-Star event? You would have no clue, none. And it shows you how important it is to have like nice, clear graphics, just always, but particularly for an event like this, that's not just here's the top 5.
Well, and the graphic that kept popping up was projected finish,
which is nice.
Yeah,
but I want to see the scores.
The only time, there was one time that entire broadcast I cared about projected finish, and it was Nico's 3-stroke swing when he aced. Because at that point, they're like, actually, projected finish now swings because of Nico's it tied with Matty O. And I was like, oh, cool, that's interesting. The rest of the time, though, they're like, oh, we're putting right now. Here's our projected finish. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me. What's this matchup like? I don't. And I think part of it, as you're talking about, may be a result of the last minute nature of what I felt like a lot of these things were. Right? I mean, players were announced and told very late. Format came out later than we expected. So they probably just didn't have these tools that we're talking about ready to go. And the event suffered because of it. It was harder to follow. I don't think this is there's a reason this isn't in big takeaways, right? I don't expect this to be the running problems of the Disc Golf Pro Tour this season.
No.
I think even by LVC, things are going to be looking back to what we expect at the standard of Disc Golf Network. It just felt like after what was such a monumental off season for them, they kind of tripped and fell on their face out of the gate. in this first season.
I think you have to think about it as like a preseason game. You know, it's like
You do.
everybody's knocking the rust off.
Mhm.
And I mean, there are specific challenges to trying to like show this event on live TV effectively.
Mhm.
And I think that they probably learned some things like later than they wish they had. Like, oh God, how are we going to do these graphics? So hopefully next year it will be improved on that front. There'll just be a lot more clarity on like, we need to see whole previews, right? Like these are like little fundamental things that are just required in order for the viewing audience to feel like they're able to keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
So let's move over to the big takeaways from this weekend as we kind of look ahead to the season. And I got to start with one right off the top. And this kind of cuts both ways. I'm really interested to get your take on this, Josh. Eagle McMahon clearly limited this weekend, not throwing forehands, not throwing full power, throwing lefty backhands to get that left to right shot shape a lot. He threw them a lot, including on like pretty strong, powerful drives. First things first, this guy is unbelievably talented, okay? You know, like lefty backhand, how far could I throw a lefty backhand off the tee? I mean, I feel like maybe 50% of how far I can throw my regular right-handed backhand. And he's out there like parking drives. It was incredible to watch. On the other hand, Josh, it's a little concerning to see Eagle McMahon having to use a lefty backhand in order to play the course effectively. Now, he certainly did. He was the second best scorer in the singles round. He shot a 12 under despite not having a forehand. That's very impressive, but is it sustainable? What are your thoughts on Eagle's situation right now?
He's got to get healthy. I think this may work for a period of time for, you know, the tournaments he plans on playing, where he says, I probably won't need many forehands. I think though that very quickly, and I guess that's what, I mean, it's why he's taking the Texas swing off. It's not sustainable, but honestly, based on this weekend, I think he's going to be fine at Vegas. I don't think it's going to hinder him too much. It may be the difference between him taking first and third, though.
I agree with that.
I mean, yes, you can get up in the general area. Granted, I mean, he's an amazing putter. And if his range is 100 feet and in, then maybe it'll be fine. Maybe if his only need is, I have to throw a lefty backhand into within 100 feet, maybe I'm completely wrong about this. But I think that Eagle's talent and skill with the backhand, both lefty and righty, can carry him to a top 5. But when it comes down to the wire, I think it means that Calvin or Paul or Ricky or Sexton or Dickerson or Hammis are probably going to beat him out, and he may finish a little lower because of it.
Just incredible to watch him throw those lefties, though. I mean, some of the shots, there's that one hole where it's like kind of downhill with the basket to the right, and there's a tree, kind of guardian tree, and he just throws a perfect drive on Heiser with the left hand. And, you know, has a tap in for birdie. It was awesome to watch. But I agree. I mean, I think how precise can you be with that shot in terms of just managing that power correctly, managing the accuracy correctly? I mean, it's just not going to be as good as his forehand. And I do wonder, you know, clearly Eagle McMahon at 80% power, 90% power is still so clearly powerful enough to compete at the highest levels of distance on tour that he can still be a winner. So hopefully, you know, once his arm is back to normal and he's able to throw forehands again, which hopefully is very soon, he can maybe just say, you know what, I'm going to take that 5 to 10% off my shots to think about preservation of my arm over the course of the season, and that will be fine. And I really do think it will be fine. So, you know, impressive to see him do as well as he did. And of course, just hitting that bangerang 100-footer from beneath a tree on 18. The guy who beat him out, Calvin Heimberg. Calvin Heimberg, it's contract year Calvin is about to be a nickname here on the show because this dude is looking really good to start the year.
He played so well. So his rating for the round, 1090. I mean, it didn't look like Calvin was breaking a sweat.
And he almost beat Double G in the distance competition.
Yeah.
He was dialed. And
this is the Calvin I expected last year. Right? You have 2020 Calvin, who plays really well, who is just by far probably the most consistent player on tour. You got Dickerson, but I mean, very, very consistent, known for his consistency inside the top 5, just an amazing player. And then 2021 felt lackluster from Calvin. It just did not feel like his best season, and his rating showed. I mean, he dropped out, and we quit including Calvin when we talked about top tier. We talked Paul, Ricky, and Eagle because Calvin just wasn't meriting.
Wasn't quite there.
Yeah, wasn't meriting being a part of that discussion. If Calvin plays like he looked like this weekend, we're going to have no problems talking about Calvin.
I mean, yeah, this is his shot at it, He's going to get a big fat contract if he has a great year. And so all the motivation is there. The discs look dialed in. He looked, he has both the technical execution of the shots, but also the obvious mentality required to play great golf. I mean, for him to step up after Eagle hits that one and just cash the putt, no problem. I mean, that's the kind of thing that a lot of players just wouldn't be able to do that in that spot, even if they're a great putter, because the mental pressure there is, you're expecting to just have to lay up and then tap in. And now all of a sudden you got to make the putt on this difficult circle's edge uphill putt. Great stuff from Calvin.
Yeah.
What else stood out to you?
This kind of goes back to new bags and some players with new bags and some of the storylines that were there. Dickerson disappointed this weekend in a big way. Like, Dickerson played bad.
He has not had a lot of time with those discs yet.
No, he hasn't. I think Dickerson shot the worst round relative to his rating of any MPO player.
That's right.
So he shoots -2, a 989 rated round, which is a 56 points below his rating. That's rough.
And it's rare to see from him.
Uh-huh.
It's rare to see from him. But I do think that you have to expect there is some adjustment time. And some players have been working, like Katrina Allen, for example, who looked fantastic this weekend with her new plastic. She spent months, at least many weeks, in a secluded field just doing field work with her new discs, hiding from everybody so that they wouldn't know that she was making this switch to DGA. And like, this had been in the works. Mm-hmm. But remember that Chris Dickerson, right, he like kind of made a last minute exit and only signed with, like, when we found out about Discraft Chris Dickerson contract, that was only a couple days after the deal got done. So he hasn't really had that much time with his plastic yet. And like, it's true, archer, not arrows. No question. But the thing is, if I give you a bunch of brand new arrows, you're still going to have to take some time to figure out how they fly. So I think that's what we're seeing with Chris Dickerson. I'm not really worried long term, but I don't think I'd put him in my top 3 for LVC.
No, and I agree. Not long term. I'm interested to see. I think that the real question is he going to be ready by Texas Swing? Because, I mean, Texas Swing, those courses are punishing. There are a lot of technical aspects to it. And I think that that's really going to show whether or not he's able to build it by then, is how he does that, especially like Texas States, for example. So,
Katrina Allen didn't just like play well by the scoreboard. She also outshot her rating by 48 points in that singles round. Wow. That was the best in FPO, over 1,000 rated. So Really, really strong start for Katrina Allen to her year, and DGA's got to be juiced about that. So, one of the big questions coming into this year, like Kona Panis adjusting to new plastic as well, playing with DD, and everybody's wondering, how's the putt going to look? It did not get off to a great start, Josh. Emblematic of this weekend was on the 18th hole in the singles round. She had maybe 15-footer, and it's kind of throwing like a hyzer putt now, like coming out on hyzer. And remember, last year to start the year, she was throwing an anhyzer putt. So like definitely been trying different stuff. But throws a hyzer putt, 15-footer, complete air ball, does not touch metal, and it, like rolls down the hill, misses the comebacker, and like DGN didn't even show her putting out. Yikes. It is not there. It is not there to start the year. And we've heard a lot from Kona Panis about confidence this year and feeling great about the putt, but it was not looking good. And I this is the big question mark about her game. We'll see. I don't know about this new putt format. I would like to see Kona Panis go in and just work on rock solid fundamentals, flat putt, like take the time to learn how to do it, because it's not working right now.
Well, and she has circle 2 putts where she's still using the Annie putt. And there was one that she putts Annie and it flexes out and hits the ground on hyzer before it ever even got made to the basket. And she was like on the little birdie or the little marker for circle 2. So it's not like she was 70 feet out. She was 35 feet.
That at least I could chalk up to getting used to the discs.
I mean, I guess, but
yeah,
if from 15 feet, you should, if you are a professional disc golf player making $500,000 on your contract, you should be able to throw anything in that basket. Like, I don't care what they give you. It could be a driver. You should be hitting chains, I would hope, from 15 feet. And it's a mental game. But it's not just a mental game. I mean, it is partially mental game, but like you said, it does not look like Kona's putt even has the fundamentals to be a good putt.
I mean, it's just like, trying to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. I get it, because you just got to find something that you're comfortable with and can be consistent with. But yeah, it's not there yet. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about this earlier, but is Deanne Carey going to be a problem this year? Because that's one of the things that I really come away from this weekend thinking, wow, Deanne Carey, impressive. Beats Heather Young for the second straight time after going 0 for 21 in her first 21 matchups at tournaments with Heather Young. And I pulled up her round ratings, and since September, she's averaging 946 rated golf. And to put that in context a little bit, she's currently rated 934. And at the beginning of 2021, she was rated 916. Okay. So in a year, she's gone up almost 20 points in her rating and is currently averaging, over the last 30 or so rounds, a solid another 10 or 12 points above her rating, her current rating. So Deanne Carey on the ascent in FPO.
Well, 946, I mean, that puts her around the Lisa Fakis, Jessica Weiss, Kona Panis mark in terms of rating. I mean, don't forget, Lisa Fakis was a contender at Worlds.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is a rating. Do I expect Deanne Carey to go out and win multiple Elite Series events? Probably not. I expect her to win some Silver Series, a Silver Series at least. And I expect her to probably podium. I think she could probably podium. If the cards go her, I mean, if it falls her way, if things just set up right, I could see her podium at a tournament.
I mean, Kona Panis won on the Elite Series event last year.
She did.
Lisa Fakis won multiple Silver Series.
And I think it shows the depth of the FPO field that we are, I mean, there are players that are accelerating to the point in that field where here's the people we expect to win, here's the people that could win on any given weekend. And Dean Carey is in that group now, and I think that group is slowly expanding. And MPOs is enormous, and I think that FPOs is working on catching up.
Well, it was a very interesting weekend overall. 9 days away from the start of the season at Las Vegas Challenge. It's a 4-day tournament. Starts next Thursday. So we got 3 more shows coming your way before the start of that event. And we're going to start getting you ready for the season. It's going to be all season preview from here to the start of LVC. We've got a bunch of fun segments coming your way. So make sure to stay tuned for all of that. That is going to do it for today's show. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you on Thursday right here on The Upshot.